Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the provocative scholar and social critic Camille Paglia. You may have seen her recently interviewed by Jordan Peterson on her criticisms of cultural Marxism. An older video of a talk that she gave has recently resurfaced where she describes transgenderism in particular and androgyny in general as a sign of civilizational collapse. So what I want to do is I want to play you that clip, and then I want to show you just how prescient her comments were in light of what's happening today.
I don't want to get you to say anything you don't believe, but I'm interested in it because I want to be for liberation. I'm not going to stop anyone dressing how they will. But there's something weird about lots of young women wanting to be young men and lots of young men wanting to be women. I don't feel as though it's a great step forward myself. Thoughts?
Well, I say in the introduction to my new book, my new collection, my particular transgender rebellion came at a time when there wasn't these ideas in the air, that the moment you are dissatisfied with the limitations of your present gender definition, that there is this enormous mechanism waiting to alter your body, to halt puberty, to slow your puberty down. People, all very well-meaning and very sympathetic, are there to provide surgical intervention and potential, permanent changes in your body with which there's no going back. Okay, for me, a sex change operation opens one door but closes many others. Right? So I personally believe that anyone who collaborates in an intrusion into a developing child's body and mind is guilty of child abuse, a crime against humanity, okay? Because that child is not prepared to make such a decision, okay? I think that such decisions about sex reassignment surgery must wait when one attains a majority, which would be, it seems to me, a minimum of age 18. I'm very concerned with this because I think that it's become a fashion, okay, that the transgender definition has become a kind of convenient label for young people who may simply feel alienated, okay, culturally for many other reasons, okay. So that in the 1950s they might have become a beatnik, in the 1960s they might have become a hippie and taken mind-expanding drugs, okay. And so today you're encouraged to think that it's an alienation is because you are not totally defined, identifying with your particular inherited gender definition.
Now, the questioner there, her question was very interesting. Did you catch that? Again, remember, this was from a few years back. It was from a Battle of Ideas conference in the UK, I believe back in 2016. And back then, even this questioner was like, there's just something very weird about lots of young women wanting to be men and young men wanting to be women. That was the setup to the question. And Camille Paglia, who is herself a very outspoken lesbian and more of a classical liberal, she's recognizing that this current transmania, as it were, is first and foremost potential child abuse, which she called a crime against humanity, as sex reassignment surgeries imposed on children who are not prepared to make such a life-altering, permanently body-altering decision. But secondly, it's actually just the latest outworking of a common human experience of social and cultural alienation. So in the 50s, those who felt alienated may have become a beatnik. In the 60s, it became hippies. And today, they're being initiated into the trans movement. But again, her point is that while it may involve the same sense of relief from social alienation, the difference here is that the trans movement often entails surgical alterations that can't be undone. So you can always stop being a hippie, but you can't undo surgically performed body modifications. So this is one of the aspects of the trans movement that so alarmed people like Jordan Peterson, or the slew of legislation we're seeing coming out of red states that are banning gender reassignment surgery to minors. But it's what Camille Paglia says next that's truly astonishing.
I'm very concerned about this. I think that a lot of it, I think that the collaboration of the bureaucratic machinery with it has to do with the assault on masculinity, okay? Okay, you see, gender doesn't really exist. It's not really polarity. I mean, everything's all about expanding women's rights, but also terminating men, okay, and defining men out of existence. Masculinity is by definition toxic, okay? Masculinity doesn't exist. And you see, this is the proof of it. But now I began all of my studies, my book Sexual Personae began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been fascinated, attracted, to the subject of androgyny, and that's what the sexual persona is. I explored it in history, but the more I explored it, I realized that that historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture, okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel, okay, and that you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art, okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust, okay, in the archaic period suddenly began to seem like wet noodles, okay, toward the end, okay, and that the people who live in such periods, a late phase of culture, whether it's the Hellenistic era, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the Mauve decade of Oscar Wilde in the 1890s, whether it's Weimar Germany, people who live at such times, okay, feel that they're very sophisticated, they're very cosmopolitan, okay, homosexuality, heterosexuality, so what, anything goes, and so on, all right, but from the perspective of historical distance, okay, you can see that it's a culture that no longer believes in itself, okay, and then what you invariably get are people who are convinced of the power of heroic masculinity, okay, on the edges, whether they're the Vandals and the Huns, okay, or whether they're the barbarians of ISIS, okay, you see them, starting to mass on the outsides of the culture, and that's what we have right now. That there is a tremendous and rather terrifying disconnect between the infatuation with the transgender movement in our own culture and what's going on out there, okay.
Hey, gang, I just had a great interview with Andrew Grabuschat, CEO of RedBalloon. If you don't know, RedBalloon is the nation's leading anti-woke job board, and Andrew's leading the charge against the force-fed liberal culture in so many pathetic workplaces. Now, RedBalloon is hosting a free training on Thursday, May 4th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and the topic is how to find values-aligned job seekers in today's woke world. People who build your company culture and not tear it down. It's for both employers and those looking to work in a conservative environment. And here's the best part. Andrew agreed to waive the fee for our audience to attend. That's a $250 value, absolutely free for each and every one of you. If you want to learn how you can keep the culture war out of your business, click on that link below and sign up for this free training. But seating is limited, so don't wait. Click on that link right now and let's together build a patriot economy dedicated to faith, family, and freedom. Click on that link below and check them out at RedBalloon.work. Now, did you catch what she just said there? Androgyny is not just a matter of social degeneration. It concurrently presents itself as an opportunity for traditional manhood to rise up around the periphery of such a confused culture and take it over. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening all around the world. Russian legislatures are even now passing a bill that would ban all pro-LGBT propaganda from their nation. In China, new media standards have been established throughout the nation, banning what media regulators called, I kid you not, sissy idols and effeminate men. African nations such as Uganda, Ghana, and Kenya banned LGBT identity politics from their borders. The nation of Hungary, under the leadership of the extremely popular Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who's won 4 back-to-back landslide elections in a row, they're enacting laws banning schools from using materials such as promoting homosexuality and pro-LGBT values to students. Even the nation of Japan, a staunch American ally, Japan's courts have consistently banned same-sex marriage and upheld traditional gender roles. Now, the way she put it was in the end of Rome terms, right? The barbarians are at the gates, ready to sack the city that's keeled over morally. But scholars have noted that what's happening today, and even what happened back then in Rome, is actually a lot more complex than that. You see, traditional manhood isn't just rising up in such a way that surrounds our nation. It's rising up within our nation as well. Scholars such as Philip Longman and Eric Hoffman have detailed how both the United States and Europe are experiencing a massive demographic shift, where socially and culturally liberal portions of our population, which have rejected traditional gender and sex roles in the family, are objectively imploding in our population. All the while, socially and culturally conservative portion of our population that embrace traditional gender roles in the traditional family are absolutely surging. Here's how demographer Phil Longman put it. The fertility discrepancy between liberals who've basically destroyed the traditional family and conservatives who've embraced the traditional family is, quote, leading to the emergence of a new society whose members will disproportionately be descended from parents who rejected the social tendencies that once made childlessness and small families the norm. These values include an adherence to traditional patriarchal religion and a strong identification with one's own folk or nation. In other words, the societal collapse that we're seeing is not necessarily the collapse of the United States or Europe, but rather it's a collapse within of a particular population within the States and Europe. Liberalism is dying. It's demographically disappearing. The trans movement is yet the latest and perhaps most explicit example of leftist liberalism's inevitable demographic demise. You've heard the saying, the future belongs to those who show up. Well, conservatives are doing just that, all as liberals have by and large stopped replacing themselves. And as such, a flourishing civilizational renewal appears very much at hand. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And you definitely want to check out my latest video on Sylvester Stallone, one of my heroes, destroying woke insanity. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.